The shields flickered and died. Commander Zelkara watched the display with growing horror as another defense platform exploded into silent fire. The Crythian warships kept coming, wave after wave of dark metal and burning weapons. They filled the space around Viridian Prime like a swarm of angry insects. Status report, Zelkara clicked through her mandibles. Her voice stayed calm even though fear crawled through her chest. We have lost another cruiser, the tactical officer reported. His crystalline body pulsed with stressed colors. The Deepkin squadron is down to 3 ships. Hull breaches on 17 vessels. Sir, we cannot hold. The Zeltar commander looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed enemy ships. There were hundreds of them. Blue markers showed friendly forces. There were so few now. The math was simple and terrible. They were losing. The Crythian Dominion did not believe in elegant warfare. They believed in overwhelming force. They came with more ships, more guns, more soldiers than anyone could fight. 40 star systems had fallen to them using this same strategy. Viridian Prime would be 41. All ships continue evasive patterns, Zelkara ordered. Focus fire on their heavy cruisers. Make them pay for every meter of space. The Coalition fleet obeyed. Ships from 3 different species moved in coordination. The insectoid Zeltar vessels were fast and agile. The Luminian crystal ships could redirect energy with their unique technology. The Deepkin water-bearing craft excelled at close combat. Together they had won many victories, but not today. Today they faced too many enemies. A Crythian battle group broke through the defensive line. Their weapons tore into a Luminian carrier. The beautiful crystal structure shattered into 1,000,000 pieces, each one catching the light of the distant sun. 3,000 souls died in an instant. Civilian transports are still evacuating the planet, another officer reported. They need 20 more minutes. Zelkara felt the weight of those words. 20 minutes. An eternity in battle. A heartbeat in the span of life. How many would die to buy those 20 minutes? Then we give them 20 minutes, she said firmly. All ships form defensive wall Alpha 7. Protect those transports with everything we have. The remaining coalition ships moved into position. They placed themselves between the massive Crythian fleet and the fleeing civilian vessels. On the planet below, millions of people looked up at the sky and prayed to their various gods. They watched the lights of battle and hoped to live another day. War Master Thulkor sat in his command throne and watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The pathetic coalition defense was crumbling. Soon he would claim another system for the Dominion. Soon he would add another victory to his long list. Their fleet is down to 30% combat effectiveness, his second-in-command reported. They are forming a defensive position around the evacuation transports. Noble, Thulkor said with amusement in his voice. And pointless. Send in battle groups 7 through 12. Crush them. 6 dozen Crythian warships accelerated toward the coalition line. Their weapons charged with deadly energy. The coalition ships fired back desperately. A few Crythian vessels took damage. One exploded. But the others kept coming. Commander Zelkara watched the enemy approach. She calculated firing solutions, shield redistribution, crew casualties. The numbers all told the same story. This was the end. Sir, we are receiving a transmission, the communications officer said suddenly. Multiple coalition channels. It is a general distress call. Broadcast it, Zelkara ordered. Maybe someone will remember we fought here. The message went out across all frequencies. It carried the story of the Coalition's last stand at Viridian Prime. It told of bravery and sacrifice. It begged for any friendly forces to come. But everyone knew there were no reinforcements. The nearest Coalition fleet was 3 days away. The Crythian ships opened fire. Coalition vessels began to die. One by one, the brave defenders fell silent. The blue markers on the tactical display turned gray. Zelkara prepared to give the evacuation order. The civilian transports needed 5 more minutes, but there was no point in everyone dying. Her crew had done enough. They had earned the right to survive if they could. Then something impossible happened. Sir, sensor contact, the tactical officer shouted. Unknown vessel entering the system. Coordinates 74 Mark III. Zelkara turned to look at the display. A new marker appeared at the edge of the system. It was moving fast, coming out of FTL with a signature she had never seen before. Identification, she demanded. Working on it, sir. The ship is broadcasting an IFF code. It says, the officer stopped and stared at his console. It says it is from Earth. The ship identifies itself as UTSS Indomitable. The command center went silent. Everyone stared at the display. Earth, the humans, that small species that had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago, the ones with only 3 colony worlds and a small defense force. What were they doing here? Size analysis? Zelkara asked. The vessel is smaller than expected, sir. Approximately the size of a heavy cruiser. Single ship. No escort. A single human ship. One vessel against the Crithian armada. It made no sense. War Master Thulkor saw the new contact appear on his display. He leaned forward with interest. What is that? He demanded. Human vessel, War Master. Records indicate this is a military ship from Earth. They are hailing us. Let me hear it, Thulkor ordered. He was curious what this tiny species would say. The communication channel opened. A human voice spoke. It was female, calm, and somehow confident despite the situation. This is Captain Elena Kursk of the United Terran Star Force's ship Indomitable. To all coalition forces, break off and regroup behind our position. We will handle the Crithian fleet. Silence filled both command centers. On the Zeltar flagship, officers stared at each other in confusion. Handle the Crithian fleet, one ship? Then the human spoke again, this time directly addressing the Crithians. Crithian Dominion Fleet, this is your only warning. Power down your weapons and withdraw from this system. If you continue hostile actions, we will defend our allies with lethal force. Thulkor began to laugh. The sound filled his command center. His officers joined in, amused by the absurd arrogance of this minor species. Respond to them, Thulkor ordered when he stopped laughing. Tell them they face 500 warships. Tell them to run home before we add humanity to our list of conquered species. The message was sent. The human ship did not respond with words. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the Crithian fleet. The single vessel moved with surprising speed, heading straight into the teeth of the armada. Commander Zelkara watched the human ship approach. She did not know whether to admire their courage or mourn their imminent destruction. But something made her follow the human captain's orders. All coalition ships fall back, she commanded. Reform behind the human vessel. The surviving coalition forces withdrew. They watched as the tiny human ship positioned itself between them and 500 Crithian warships. The battlefield seemed to hold its breath. On board the Indomitable, Captain Elena Kursk sat in her command chair. Her crew worked at their stations with focused intensity. They were frightened. They were outnumbered. But they were human and they had come to fight. All stations report ready, Captain, her first officer said. Elena nodded. She looked at the display showing the massive enemy fleet. Then she smiled, fierce and determined. Good, she said quietly. Activate Ragnarok Protocol. Let's show them what humans can do. The UTSS Indomitable cut through space like a blade. Its hull was dark gray metal, scarred from previous battles. To the watching coalition forces, it looked small and fragile, compared to the massive Crithian dreadnoughts. But there was something in the way it moved that caught attention. It did not hesitate. It did not slow down. It moved like a predator that had found prey. Captain Elena Kursk studied the tactical display in front of her. 500 enemy ships. Her crew of 300 humans. The math did not favor them. But math had never stopped humanity before. Sensor analysis, she ordered. Lieutenant Chen spoke from his station. Crithian fleet is maintaining standard battle formation. Heavy cruisers in front, destroyers on the flanks, carriers in the rear. They are not adjusting for our presence, Captain. They do not see us as a threat. Elena smiled without humor. Good, keep it that way. Weapons, status. All systems green, Captain, replied Commander Jackson. Railguns charged. Missile tubes loaded. Nanite swarms ready for deployment. Electronic warfare suite online. We are ready to dance. Around the bridge, her crew worked with calm efficiency. They came from every corner of Earth. Chen was from Beijing. Jackson's family came from Detroit. Communications officer Maria Rodriguez grew up in Buenos Aires. Navigator Kofi Mensah was born in Lagos. Tactical officer Yuki Tanaka called Tokyo home. They spoke different languages, followed different traditions, believed different things. But here now they were one. They were human. They were crew. Captain receiving transmission from Coalition flagship, Rodriguez reported. Commander Zelkara wants to speak with you. Put it through. The Zeltar commander's face appeared on the screen. Her insect features were hard to read, but her voice carried clear concern. Captain Kursk, we appreciate your courage, but this is suicide. The Crithian fleet will destroy you in minutes. Please withdraw while you can. Elena understood the commander's fear. The coalition species had fought the Crithians many times. They knew the enemy's strength. But they did not know humans. Commander, my government sent me here to protect our allies, Elena replied. We received your distress call. We came as fast as we could. Now we are going to do what we promised. We are going to stop them. How? Zelkara asked. The question was desperate. You are one ship. One human ship, Elena corrected gently. That makes a difference. Trust us, Commander. Keep your forces back. We will need room to work. She closed the channel before Zelkara could argue further. There was no time for long explanations. The Crithian fleet was moving. On the Crithian flagship, War Master Thulkor watched the human ship approach with growing annoyance. The arrogance of this species irritated him. They needed to learn their place in the galaxy. He would teach them. What do we know about human military capabilities? He asked his intelligence officer. Very little, War Master. They have only recently developed FTL technology. Their fleet is small. Perhaps 50 vessels total across all classes. They have never fought in a major engagement. By all reports, they should not be a significant threat. And yet they challenge 500 of our finest warships. Thulkor mused. Perhaps they are simply foolish. Or perhaps they have something we do not know about. Deploy scout ships. Scan that vessel. I want to know what weapons it carries. 6 Crithian scout ships broke formation and accelerated toward the Indomitable. They were fast, lightly armed vessels designed to gather information. Their sensors focused on the human ship, trying to penetrate its hull and identify its systems. On the Indomitable, alerts began to sound. Enemy scouts incoming, Tanaka reported. They are running active scans on us. Let them look, Elena said calmly. Jackson, when they get within 10,000 kilometers, give them something to scan. Yes, Captain. Jackson's fingers danced across his console. Priming Surprise Package 1. The Crithian scouts drew closer. Their sensors worked to analyze the human ship. What they saw confused them. The power readings were strange, fluctuating in ways that did not match known technology. The hull composition was unusual, some kind of enhanced alloy. The weapon signatures were. Multiple warnings suddenly screamed across their displays. Weapons lock, one scout pilot shouted. They are targeting us! Before the scouts could react, the Indomitable fired. But it did not use conventional weapons. Instead, it released a cloud of something that looked like metallic dust on sensors. The cloud spread rapidly, engulfing all 6 scout ships. What is that? Thulkor demanded. Report. Unknown particles, War Master. They are attaching to our ships. They are eating through the hulls. On the scout vessels, nanite swarms went to work. Microscopic machines, each smaller than a grain of sand, covered the ships in seconds. They did not destroy the vessels. They did something worse. They disabled them. Engines died. Shields flickered out. Weapons went offline. Communications cut to static. In 30 seconds, 6 Crithian scouts became 6 pieces of floating debris, their crews alive but helpless. Impossible, Thulkor whispered. He had never seen technology like this. Elena watched the results with satisfaction. That got their attention. Chen, start running pattern Delta 7. Keep us moving. Make them work for target locks. Yes, Captain. Engaging evasive maneuvers. The Indomitable began to move in ways that made coalition observers question their sensors. It twisted and turned with acceleration that should have crushed the crew. It performed barrel rolls and sudden direction changes that violated standard tactical doctrine. Human pilots flew by instinct as much as computer calculation. The ship became unpredictable, impossible to track with automated targeting systems. Thulkor felt the first touch of uncertainty. This was not how space combat worked. Ships moved in predictable patterns based on physics and optimal firing solutions. But the human ship moved like it was dancing, like it was alive. All battle groups advance and destroy that ship, he ordered. Use overwhelming firepower. I want it turned to atoms. 50 Crithian warships broke formation and charged at the Indomitable. Their weapons charged. Missile tubes opened. Energy cannons powered up. They prepared to unleash enough firepower to crack a small moon. On the Indomitable, Elena watched them come. Her heartbeat was steady. Her hands did not shake. She had trained for this her entire life. The Earth military had studied every battle in human history. They learned from ancient warriors and modern soldiers. They understood something the galactic species had forgotten. War was not just math and technology. It was will. It was courage. It was the refusal to surrender. "Captain, they are charging weapons," Tanaka reported. "Estimate 45 seconds to firing range." Acknowledged. "All hands brace for combat." Rodriguez opened a channel to the Crethian fleet. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Captain." Elena stood from her chair. She looked at her crew, saw their trust and determination. Then she spoke, knowing both friends and enemies would hear her words. "This is Captain Elena Kursk of Earth. You came to conquer. You came to destroy. You thought you faced weak prey. But you are wrong. You face humanity. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. We fight until we win or until we die. There is no third option." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she gave the order that would change galactic history. "All hands, this is the captain. We are going in. Activate Ragnarok Protocol. Authorization Kursk Alpha 7. Let's show these bastards why you do not threaten human friends." Across the ship, systems came online that the galaxy had never seen. Weapons that human engineers designed in secret. Tactics that human military minds created in war games and simulations. Technology that combined human creativity with a simple philosophy. If you cannot be stronger, be smarter. If you cannot be bigger, be faster. If you cannot win fairly, cheat better than anyone else. The Indomitable surged forward. It stopped evading and started attacking, and the battlefield exploded into chaos. War Master Thulkor watched his tactical display with growing shock. The human ship was moving into his fleet, not away from it. It was charging directly at 50 warships like a warrior with a death wish. This made no tactical sense, then he understood. Humans did not fight like other species. They fought to win, and they would do anything to win. The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness of space. The Crethian ships fired hundreds of weapons. The Indomitable fired back. But it did not try to match firepower with firepower. Instead, it released chaos. Missiles that split into dozens of smaller missiles. Electronic attacks that turned enemy sensors blind. Kinetic rounds fired at such speeds they punched through shields like paper, and the Crethian formation began to break. The first Crethian battlecruiser died in fire and silence. The Indomitable had put 3 railgun rounds through its reactor core at near light speed. The ship simply came apart, its hull tearing like paper. Debris spread in all directions, forcing nearby Crethian vessels to break formation or risk collision. "One down," Commander Jackson reported. His voice was steady, professional. Inside, his heart raced with combat adrenaline. Targeting solutions for the next 4 locked in. Captain Elena Kursk gripped her command chair. The ship shook as Crethian weapons hammered against their shields. Red warning lights flashed. Damage reports scrolled across her display. But they were still alive. They were still fighting. "Keep firing. Chen, execute attack pattern Wolverine. Take us through their center line." "Captain, that will put us in the crossfire of 20 ships, Chen protested. His voice carried worry, not fear. He trusted his captain, but the math was brutal. "Yes, it will," Elena agreed. "Which means they will have to be careful not to shoot each other." "We will not." Fire at will, all weapons, the Indomitable dove into the heart of the Crethian formation. It was the last thing the enemy expected. Standard military doctrine said to maintain distance, use superior range, avoid close combat where you could be surrounded. Humans had read that doctrine. Then they threw it away and wrote their own. The ship spun on its axis while moving forward at full speed. Weapons fired in all directions. Missiles launched in spiraling patterns. Railguns tracked targets faster than computer prediction models could follow, because human gunners used instinct and experience, not just math. The Indomitable became a whirlwind of destruction, and the Crethian ships found themselves in a nightmare. "They are firing on each other," a Crethian weapons officer shouted. "Third battle group just hit ships from 5th battle group." War Master Thulkor slammed his fist on his chair. This was chaos. This was wrong. Space combat was supposed to be organized, controlled, predictable. But the human ship made everything unpredictable. It moved in ways his computers could not calculate. It fired weapons from angles that should not exist. It was everywhere and nowhere at once. "Focus all fire on that ship," he roared. "I do not care about collateral damage. Destroy it now." But his orders came too late. The Indomitable had already penetrated too deep into the formation. Crethian ships hesitated, afraid to fire and hit their own forces. In that hesitation, the human ship killed 3 more vessels. On the Indomitable's bridge, alerts screamed constantly. Shield strength was dropping. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. Fire and Engineering Section 3, casualties mounting. But the crew fought through the damage with grim determination. Shield generators are overheating, reported Engineer Lieutenant Sarah Williams over the comm. Her voice came through static. I can give you maybe 5 more minutes at this power level, Captain. After that, we are naked out here. Understood. Keep them running as long as you can. We are almost through their formation. The ship shuddered as another enemy blast got through the shields. Metal groaned. Someone screamed over the ship-wide channel, then went silent. Direct hit on our port quarter, Jackson reported. His console sparked. He slapped out the small fire with his bare hand. We lost 2 railgun turrets. Missile Pod 6 is offline. Compensate with starboard weapons. Tanaka, find me a weakness in their formation. Tactical Officer Tanaka studied his displays through a cracked screen. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead, but he ignored it. Numbers and patterns filled his vision. He saw how the Crithians moved, where they concentrated fire, where they left gaps. There, Captain. Coordinate 77 Mark 12. If we angle through that vector, we can exit their formation with only 15 ships in direct firing position. Only 15, Elena said with dark humor. Chen, take us through. Maximum speed. The Indomitable surged forward. Its fusion engines burned at 110% capacity, well beyond safe limits. The ship groaned with stress. But it moved fast and deadly, carving a path through the enemy fleet. Commander Zelkara watched from the Coalition flagship with something close to awe. The human ship should be dead. By every tactical calculation she knew, it should have been destroyed in the first 30 seconds of engagement. But it kept fighting. It kept moving. It seemed almost impossible to kill. Analysis, she demanded. Her tactical officer worked frantically at his station. Colors pulsed rapidly through his crystalline body, showing extreme stress. The human ship is using tactics I have never seen, Commander. It fires weapons that confuse our sensors. It moves without regard for optimal flight paths. It seems to deliberately make itself unpredictable. The Crithians cannot establish proper targeting locks. What is their casualty count? The Crithians have lost 17 ships destroyed, another 23 damaged. The human ship, he paused, checking his readings again. The human ship has taken severe damage but remains combat effective. I do not understand how. Zelkara did not understand either, but she was beginning to see something the Crithians had not yet realized. The humans did not fight to win elegant victories. They fought to survive and destroy. They were not warriors. They were something more primal. They were survivors who had turned survival into an art form. The Indomitable burst from the Crithian formation in a shower of debris and weapons fire. The ship's hull was scorched and dented. Atmosphere vented from a dozen breaches. But its engines still burned bright and its weapons still fired. We are through, Chen reported. He was breathing hard, hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline. Clear space ahead. Do not slow down, Elena ordered. Deploy quantum mines on our exit trajectory. Let them follow us into that surprise. From the Indomitable's stern, small objects deployed into space. They looked like simple mines floating harmlessly. But these were human quantum mines, devices that existed partially outside normal space-time. When Crithian ships tried to follow the human vessel, the mines phased into reality and detonated with devastating force. 5 more enemy ships died or suffered crippling damage. War Master Thulkor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. He had lost over 40 ships, 40 to 1 enemy vessel. His crew looked at him with uncertainty. They had never seen their War Master's strategy fail so completely. Status of the human ship? He asked quietly. Damaged but operational, War Master. They are circling back for another attack run. Another run? Thulkor felt something he rarely experienced. Doubt. They are coming back? Yes, War Master. On the Indomitable, Captain Kursk assessed her ship's condition. It was bad. Life support was failing in 3 sections. They had lost 20 crew members with 40 more wounded. Weapon systems were damaged. Shields were down to 30%. By any reasonable standard, they should withdraw and repair. But the civilian transports were still evacuating. The Coalition fleet was still too weak to fight alone. And Elena Kursk was human. Reasonable standards did not apply. Prepare for attack run 2, she ordered. Jackson, we are low on missiles. Switch to kinetic weapons and electronic warfare. Chen, I want you to set up a collision course with their flagship. Every head on the bridge turned to look at her. Captain, a collision course? Chen asked carefully. Not an actual collision, Elena clarified with a slight smile. Just make them think we are crazy enough to ram them. Humans have a reputation for ramming things when we get angry. Let's use that fear." Understanding dawned on Chen's face. He smiled back, fierce and wild. "Yes, Captain." Setting ramming course for the Crithian flagship, the Indomitable turned and accelerated back toward the enemy fleet. This time it did not try to be clever or tactical. It simply pointed at the largest Crithian ship and charged at maximum speed. The message was clear and terrifying. The humans would crash their ship into the enemy command vessel if necessary. War Master Thulkor saw the human ship coming directly at him. His sensors confirmed it was on a collision course. His mind tried to process this information. Were they actually going to ram him? It was insane. It was suicide. It was working. Fear touched his mind for the first time in decades of warfare. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted. "Get us away from that ship!" The Crithian flagship, massive and powerful, began to turn. Other ships in the formation scattered, trying to get out of the way of the apparently suicidal human vessel. The careful formation dissolved into chaos once again. At the last possible moment, the Indomitable veered away from the flagship. But as it passed, it unleashed every weapon it had left. Railguns fired at point-blank range. Nanite swarms covered the flagship's hull. Electronic warfare attacks crashed through the Crethian ship's computer systems. The flagship did not die. It was too large, too well armored, but it was hurt. Its shields failed. Its weapons went offline. Its communications died. The command ship of the Crithian fleet became a floating hulk, dead in space. War Master Thulkor stood in his darkened command center, emergency lights casting red shadows. Sparks fell from damaged systems. His crew struggled to restart critical systems, and through his view screen he watched the human ship circle back for another pass. "How?" he whispered. "How is one ship doing this?" His second-in-command had no answer. No one did. The galaxy was learning a new truth that day. Humanity was not stronger than other species. They were not more advanced. They were not superior warriors. But they absolutely refused to lose. And the Indomitable drifted through the debris field, moving slowly now. Smoke leaked from hull breaches. Whole sections of the ship were dark, power lost. Inside, damage control teams worked frantically to keep critical systems online. The ship was dying by centimeters, but it still fought. Captain Elena Kursk sat in her chair, breathing heavily. Her uniform was torn. Burns marked her left arm where a console had exploded. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye. Around her, the bridge crew looked equally battered. But their eyes still held fire. "Status report," she said. Her voice was hoarse from shouting orders through the battle. Commander Jackson consulted his damaged console. "We have lost 60% of our weapons. Shields are at 15% and failing. Hull breaches on 20 decks. Life support is critical. Engineering says we have maybe 30 minutes of combat capability left." After that, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. "Casualties?" Elena asked quietly. 43 dead. 68 wounded. Medical bay is overwhelmed. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. 43 souls. 43 families back on Earth who would receive terrible news. 43 people who trusted her to bring them home. The weight of command was a physical thing pressing down on her shoulders, but she could not stop. Not yet. The mission was not complete. "Chen, what is the status of the civilian evacuation?" "Last. Transport just cleared the planet's gravity well, Captain. They are jumping to FTL now. All civilians are safe." Elena felt a small spark of relief. At least that was something. The people of Viridian Prime would live. The battle had meaning, even if they died here. Tanaka, enemy fleet status. Tactical Officer Tanaka studied his cracked display. His face was pale from blood loss, but his mind was still sharp. Crithian fleet has lost 207 ships destroyed or disabled. Their flagship is still offline. But Captain? He looked up at her with worried eyes. "They still have almost 300 combat-capable vessels. We hurt them badly, but they can still win if they regroup." Elena nodded slowly. She had known this moment would come. They had done incredible damage, but one ship could not defeat an entire armada. The math finally caught up with courage. They needed help. Rodriguez. Hail the Coalition fleet, all channels. Channel open, Captain. Elena stood from her chair, swaying slightly. She gripped the back of the chair for support and looked at the camera that would transmit her face to the Coalition ships. Commander Zelkara, this is Captain Kursk. The civilians are safe. Your people are safe. But we cannot do this alone anymore. My ship is badly damaged. My crew is dying. We have bought you time and shown you the enemy can bleed. Now I am asking you to stand with us. Fight with us. Help us finish what we started. Silence stretched across the comm channels. Elena waited, wondering if her words would be enough. The Coalition species had been beaten down by the Crithians for so long. Fear was a powerful thing. It could make brave beings hesitate. On the Coalition flagship, Commander Zelkara stared at the human captain's image. She saw the damage, the exhaustion, the pain, but she also saw the determination. This human had crossed the galaxy to help strangers. She had fought impossible odds without hesitation. She had shown what was possible when someone refused to accept defeat. Zelkara made her decision. All Coalition ships, this is the commander. We have watched humans fight for us. We have watched them bleed for us. They did not run. They did not surrender. Now it is our turn to show the same courage. All ships charge weapons and prepare for assault. We attack together with our human allies. For Viridian Prime. For the Coalition. For honor. Across the Coalition fleet, cheers erupted. Ships that had been preparing to retreat suddenly surged forward with renewed energy. The Zeltar vessels buzzed with battle excitement. The Luminian crystals glowed with fierce light. The Deepkin warships released their battle cries into the void. The Coalition fleet, inspired by human courage, found its own strength again. They charged at the Crithian fleet together, Coalition and human forces united. War Master Thulkor watched this development from his emergency command station. His flagship was still crippled, but he had transferred command functions to a cruiser. His mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. The Coalition had been defeated. They were broken, ready to surrender. But now they fought with new fury. The human ship had changed everything. One vessel and 300 mad warriors had turned the tide of battle through sheer force of will. War Master, the Coalition fleet is attacking, his tactical officer reported. Their formation is aggressive. They are not fighting defensively anymore. Thulkor understood. The humans had taught the Coalition something dangerous, that winning was possible if you fought without fear. This was a disaster. If word of this defeat spread, other species might find their courage too. All remaining battle groups intercept the Coalition fleet. We will crush them and the human ship together. Use overwhelming firepower. Destroy them all. The Crithian fleet moved to engage. But they moved with less confidence now. They had learned to fear that small human ship. They had learned that number and size did not guarantee victory. The two fleets crashed together in a massive engagement. This time, the fighting was different. The Coalition ships fought with human tactics, being unpredictable and aggressive. They took risks. They made bold moves. They stopped fighting like they expected to lose and started fighting to win. The Indomitable joined the battle despite its damage. Elena would not let her ship sit idle while others fought. The human vessel moved slowly now, but its remaining weapons still fired. Railguns tracked targets, the last missiles launched, and the crew fought with desperate determination. Captain, Crithian battle group moving to flank the Luminian squadron, Tanaka reported. They will be overwhelmed. Elena assessed the situation quickly. The Luminians were some of their best allies. They could not afford to lose them. But her ship was in no condition for another hard fight. She made her decision anyway. Chen, intercept course. Full speed. Captain, our engines are barely functional. If we push them now, we might lose propulsion completely. I know. Do it anyway. The Indomitable turned toward the Crithian battle group. Its engines screamed in protest, but they pushed forward. The ship positioned itself between the enemy and the Luminian vessels, shields raised, weapons armed. Captain, we cannot survive another concentrated attack, Jackson said quietly. It was not protest, just truth. I know, Elena replied, but we are going to try. This is what humans do. We protect our friends even when it costs us everything. The Crithian ships opened fire. Weapons struck the Indomitable's failing shields. The barriers flickered and died. Energy blasts hit the hull directly. Metal screamed. Explosions ripped through the ship. The entire vessel shuddered with impacts. On the bridge, consoles exploded. Fire erupted from damaged systems. Rodriguez was thrown from her station, hitting the wall hard. Chen's console sparked violently, burning his hands. The lights went out, leaving only emergency red glow. Elena was thrown forward. She hit her head on the command console. Blood ran down her face. Everything spun. She tasted copper in her mouth, but she forced herself to stand, gripping the chair with shaking hands. "All hands, this is the captain," she said into the ship-wide comm. Her voice was weak but determined. "We are not done yet. Engineering, I need everything you have left. Weapons, fire at will. We hold this position. We do not run." Throughout the ship, her crew responded. In engineering sections filled with smoke and fire, humans worked to keep the reactors running. In weapons bays with hull breaches and failing life support, gunners loaded and fired. In medical bays overflowing with wounded, doctors worked to save lives even as the ship died around them. The Indomitable continued to fight. It was a wreck, barely more than a floating piece of debris. But it still protected the Luminian ships. It still fired its weapons. It still stood between the enemy and its allies. Thulkor watched the human ship take damage that would destroy any other vessel, but it would not die. It would not stop. And he finally understood what he faced. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not calculate acceptable losses. They did not retreat when logic said to retreat. They fought until they won or until death took them. There was no middle ground. "Focus all remaining ships on the human vessel," he ordered. His voice carried a note of something close to respect. "Kill it with everything we have." But before his ships could concentrate their fire, something unexpected happened. The Coalition fleet, seeing the Indomitable's sacrifice, reacted with fury. They abandoned their own battle plans and surged forward to defend the human ship. Commander Zelkara led the charge. "All ships, protect the Indomitable. They saved us. Now we save them." Coalition vessels threw themselves into the path of enemy fire. The Zeltar frigates used their speed to harass Crithian gunners. The Luminian cruisers redirected energy attacks away from the human ship. The Deepkin vessels rammed into Crithian destroyers in desperate close combat. The battle became chaos, but it was glorious chaos. The Coalition fought not with strategy, but with emotion. Thiru. The siege cannon was humanity's most powerful weapon. It was designed to destroy planetary fortifications from orbit, to crack open asteroid bases, to shatter anything in its path. No one had ever tried to use it against another ship in close combat. The recoil alone could tear the Indomitable apart in its current damaged state. But Captain Elena Kursk did not care about regulations or safety margins anymore. She cared about ending this battle. She cared about saving her crew and her allies. She cared about showing the galaxy that humanity kept its promises. "Siege cannon charging," Commander Jackson reported. His voice was steady despite the pain in his burned hands. "Power diverting from all non-essential systems. Life support failing in multiple sections. Medical bay is on emergency power. Captain, when we fire, we will be completely defenseless." "Acknowledged." "How long until full charge?" 90 seconds, Elena nodded. 90 seconds was an eternity in battle. The Crithian fleet would not sit idle while the humans charged their superweapon. They would attack with everything they had. "All crew, this is the captain." Elena's voice echoed through the dying ship. "We are going to fire the siege cannon at the enemy command ship. This will use all our remaining power. After we fire, the Indomitable will be dead in space. Some sections will lose life support entirely, but if we succeed, we will break the enemy's will to fight. We will end this battle. We will save our friends. I am proud to serve with every one of you. Whatever happens next, know that we fought with honor. We fought for something bigger than ourselves." Throughout the ship, her crew prepared for what might be their last moments. In engineering, Lieutenant Williams watched the power levels climb toward critical. Her team worked to keep the failing reactors stable just a little longer. In the weapons bay, gunners loaded the final siege cannon round, a projectile the size of a small vehicle. In medical, Doctors sedated wounded crew members in sections about to lose life support, hoping someone would rescue them before their air ran out. On the bridge, the remaining officers stayed at their stations. Chen's hands were bandaged, but he maintained course toward the enemy command ship. Tanaka calculated firing solutions with one eye swollen shut. Rodriguez, her arm in a makeshift sling, worked to keep communications open. Jackson monitored weapon systems despite the pain that made his vision blur, and Elena stood at the center of it all, fleeting and exhausted but absolutely unbroken. War Master Thulkor saw the energy readings spike on the human ship. His sensors screamed warnings about the power building in the Indomitable's bow. "What is that?" he demanded. "Unknown weapon signature, War Master. Power levels are off our scale. They are pointing it directly at us." Thulkor felt fear transform into fury. These humans had destroyed his fleet, embarrassed his empire, and made him feel weak. Now they dared to threaten him directly. No, he would not allow it. All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel. Destroy it before it can fire that weapon. Use everything. Nuclear missiles, plasma torpedoes, everything we have. I want that ship turned to dust. 20 Crithian warships turned their weapons on the Indomitable. Every gun, every missile launcher, every weapon system locked onto the damaged human vessel. It was enough firepower to destroy a dozen ships. They fired as one. The space around the Indomitable lit up with explosions. Nuclear missiles detonated against the hull. Plasma torpedoes burned through armor. Energy beams sliced into the ship's structure. The coalition vessels tried to intercept, but there was too much incoming fire. Some got through. The Indomitable shuddered under the assault. Entire sections simply ceased to exist, blown away by the overwhelming firepower. The stern of the ship broke partially away, held only by structural supports. Fire spread through the corridors. The beautiful vessel that had come to save them was being torn to pieces. On the bridge, the impact threw everyone to the floor. The ceiling collapsed. Metal beams fell. Chen screamed as debris crushed his leg. Rodriguez stopped moving, unconscious or worse. Tanaka's console exploded, throwing him backward. Elena hit the floor hard. Something broke inside her chest. She could not breathe properly. Blood filled her mouth. The world turned gray and distant. She could hear the ship dying around her, metal screaming its death song. But she could also see the siege cannon's charge indicator. 80%. 90%. So close. She dragged herself toward the weapons console. Her body did not want to move. Pain made everything dim and confused. But she forced herself forward, inch by agonizing inch. She had to reach that console. She had to fire. "Jackson," she gasped. "Jackson, fire the weapon!" Commander Jackson was pinned under a fallen beam. His face was pale with pain and blood loss. But he heard her. He stretched his arm toward his console, fingers reaching for the firing control. Almost there. Just a little more. His fingers touched the button. The UTSS Indomitable fired its siege cannon. The weapon released energy equivalent to a small star. The projectile left the barrel at a significant fraction of light speed, surrounded by a field of directed nuclear plasma. It crossed the distance to the Crithian command cruiser in less than a second. The impact was apocalyptic. The Crithian ship simply ceased to exist. The siege round punched through its shields like they were not there. It struck the hull and detonated inside the vessel. The explosion that followed created a temporary second sun in the Viridian system. Light brighter than anything natural burned away the darkness. The shockwave spread outward, catching nearby ships and throwing them like toys. War Master Thulkor had one moment to realize what was happening. One instant to understand that the humans had actually done it. Then everything became light and fire, and he knew nothing more. The explosion lit up the planet below. People on the surface looked up in wonder and fear at the new star burning in their sky. In the coalition fleet, every sensor was overwhelmed by the energy discharge. Ships had to look away or risk damaging their optical sensors. And in the aftermath, silence fell. The debris cloud slowly cleared. Where there had been a massive Crithian command cruiser, there was now only expanding gas and floating wreckage. 6 other Crithian ships had been caught in the blast, destroyed or crippled. The remaining enemy vessels drifted, their crews stunned and confused. The Indomitable floated dead in space. Its engines were dark. Its weapons were silent. Its hull was broken and burning. It looked like a corpse, a ghost ship that had given everything in one final attack. Inside the shattered bridge, Elena lay on the floor. She could not move anymore. The pain was distant now, replaced by cold numbness. She knew what that meant. She was dying. Her ship was dying, but they had done it. They had protected their friends. They had shown the galaxy what humans could do. She closed her eyes, ready for the end. "Captain," a voice cut through the fog. "Captain Kursk, stay with me." Hands touched her. Someone was checking her wounds. Elena forced her eyes open. Through blurred vision, she saw Tanaka leaning over her. His face was covered in blood and burns, but he was alive. "Tanaka," she whispered. "The weapon. Did we—" "Direct hit, Captain. The enemy command ship is destroyed. The Crithians have stopped fighting. We did it. We won." Elena felt tears on her face. They had won. Humanity's first major fleet engagement, and they had won. "Casualties?" she asked weakly. "Heavy, Captain. But most of the crew survived. The Coalition is sending rescue ships. We are going to make it." On the tactical displays throughout the battlefield, both sides watched and waited. The Crithian fleet was in complete disarray. Their command structure was gone. Their warmaster was dead. They had lost over half their ships to one human vessel, and a Coalition fleet they had thought beaten. The ranking Crithian officer, a young captain named Velcor, looked at his sensors. He saw the destroyed command ship. He saw the dead human vessel that had caused all this. He saw his proud fleet scattered and broken. He made a decision that would echo through history. "All Crithian ships, this is Acting Commander Velcor. Cease all hostile actions. I am requesting terms of surrender from the Coalition forces." The words hung in the silent void. For the first time in their empire's history, a Crithian fleet was surrendering. It seemed impossible, but the humans had made the impossible real. On the Coalition flagship, Commander Zelkara could barely believe what she was hearing. Surrender. The Crithians, who had never retreated, never stopped, never showed mercy, were surrendering. One human ship had changed everything. "Inform the Crithians that we accept their surrender," Zelkara said quietly. "All ships cease fire. Medical vessels begin rescue operations for both Coalition and Crithian wounded, and someone get rescue teams to that human ship immediately. They saved us all. We will not let them die now." Coalition ships rushed to the Indomitable's aid. Rescue teams cut through the damaged hull to reach trapped crew members. Medical personnel treated the wounded. Engineers worked to stabilize the reactor before it exploded. They found Captain Kursk on the bridge, barely alive but conscious. They found Commander Jackson unconscious but breathing. They found Tanaka trying to help wounded crew members despite his own injuries. They found a crew that had given everything and somehow survived. 3 days later, Elena Kursk woke up in a hospital on Viridian Prime. Her body was wrapped in bandages and medical devices. Everything hurt, but she was alive.